Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Have you ever encountered a mysterious animal or unexplained creature? Basil H. Johnston, an Ojibwe teacher and scholar from Ontario, gives a description of a Wendigo. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones. With its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets, the Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody. Unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh, the Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption.
Mexico, Veracruz. Sometimes in the dark of the night you can see or hear kids playing outside. They wear extremely simple clothing, like a single piece of cloth with some unknown string as a belt or to secure it to the body. Chanekes. They live in caves, rivers, and places that could be considered valuable natural resources to people. They use something that can only be described as pocket dimensions. These cuevitas, caves, that only they can access, where time doesn't pass, and they have no exit to the naked eye despite in most cases having an apparent level of light with no source. Chanekes play with kids. Usually they lure kids into the wilderness, even dragging them into it during the night while everyone, including the kid, is sleeping. The kid will play with the Chaneke in the wilderness and might eventually come to the realization that it is in the middle of nowhere and come back home or wander further into nothing. Sometimes the kid might be taken by the Chaneke and never come back. It's unclear in surviving tradition what happens to the kids, if they become Chanekes themselves or if they die or get eaten. The later not likely, as Chanekes can survive without sustenance and rarely if ever kill humans. They might kill but only grown adults, and usually by cursing them with seemingly incurable disease with no known medical cause. Chanekes can be tricked into making wishes come true or even make a deal with one for profit, luck, love, etc. These deals usually present opportunities to people. If they don't take them, then it's on them. Be aware that like any deal with a creature that seemingly comes from pre-human nature, they might take something from you, either health, people, or personal items or pets. Chanekes have personalities. Some are very benevolent, others mischievous. They could be considered a type of goblin, or similar to the Japanese kami. Veracruzanos pour wine once into inaugurated wells so the Chaneke, the owner of the resource, lets them take unlimited water from it. A similar tradition is done when doing anything in untouched terrain. Otherwise, the infrastructure might become unstable or cause accidents and even cause death. The Chaneke is not happy it wasn't given something or asked permission to use the place. Chanekes can be male or female. They can fall in love, they might haunt houses, make people commit mistakes or suffer from random disease that comes and goes away. They also present opportunities or fortune to the people they have fallen in love with. Similar to the deals but one-sided, as they love the person but can't or refuse to manifest physically to them. To stop the Chaneke if this happens is to either dip or present the Chaneke with a marriage proposal on paper that involves first finishing an impossible challenge, like counting the amount of sand in a table, or finishing an impossible puzzle before the morning comes. Once the sunlight starts to come out, the Chaneke gets mad, throws everything and escapes, never coming back. As you can see, they are honorable cryptids, most of them. Some Chanekes, as previously mentioned, are very benevolent. Some might help people with little to no reason or even protect a natural resource or population. Some take deals and always give and never take. In some cases, they might present themselves to kids and force them into making deals. The kid, not knowing anything and thinking the Chaneke is just other kid, will take the deal, and the Chaneke practically helps or screws your life or both for the rest of it. In some cases, they do this for love or liking, effectively binding themselves to someone early on in their life. The kid will grow up and find love and whatnot, but technically their first partner is a spirit goblin. This is the other, less damaging way of obsessing with someone. They watch you from afar, and help if they can, or stalk you for not being with them, or both, or none. Sometimes they just leave your life, forever. The older you get, the more likely you are to never see them again. TLDR. These things are basically free-roaming jinn goblin sundaras with a shyness complex, spirits of nature that can be and not physical. Very inconsistent and potentially lethal or helpful.
I had an experience with one of them. I believe it might have tricked me into the deal. I thought she was the granddaughter of some woman who made cacao drinks every Sunday. It wasn't. I was too young and she looked as young, perhaps slightly older, and had a very cute voice, always playing with me while I was truly alone in that large but poor house. And suddenly, one day she didn't come to play anymore. I don't know if the deal is still up, but I know something. I have been too lucky my whole life, and I've lost next to nothing.
Sounds like fairies.
Yeah, but they don't fly. And some stories from people around Rancho say they look like what can only be described as a goblin. There's a funny pattern. If you analyze several Chanekes stories and accounts, it seems like the more human life or human kid-like they look, the more benevolent they are. Meanwhile, the more devil-looking of them mess up entire communities for fun. Second thing, no idea if these are demons or what, but sometimes people from communities can see weird animals that seem like a mix of two or more of them, and they kill cattle and pets for zero reason. At one point I believed they might have been naguales or alabrijes, but I don't think so anymore. As people here say, es algo del monte. It's something from the wilderness. Interesting fact, my grandma and other people's grandma know that there's almost countrywide accounts of actual farmers killing these weird things very often. At one point, the most remote parts of the country, like the Sierra de los Tuxtlas or the Sierra Madre and a ton of other similar places, had people killing at least one of these major paranormal things once per week, with just rifles and machetes, but with the blessing of God and curanderos/diableros/oradores/priests, backing up the mob from their house or place of work or praying for the brave single soul who was to slain whatever was lurking in the wilderness. My grandpa saw one of these things. Some farmers managed to kill a massive anaconda-looking snake that had long hair and was shiny and made a weird guttural noise. Grandpa only saw the corpse. He was a kid. The thing was buried in holy water and some other ritual stuff was thrown in its burial place that was never marked. My grandma similarly had to chop wood at 4 a.m. to cook at 5 a.m. One day she heard some rattling over her head. She looked up and a skeleton was moving and swinging from some tree branches. She shot it with a shotgun and ran with her friend back to the rancho she was working at. Later on, some men came to the supposed place of the sighting and they only found human bones scattered on the ground. Grandma was not arrested because that place was in a region where lots of rebels fought the Mexican army more than once, and the bones could have been from some poor dead mestizo that was left to rot once everyone retreated to the Sierra.
Witches in Mexico can only be truly killed with reverse decapitation. Their heads detach when night comes and they become fireballs, or some other element, and go around cursing people and draining life from them and shit. They might even marry men and make them fall in a deep sleep so they can still go out and do shit while no one suspects of them being anything more than a housewife. You have to rub salt in their neck wound by faking being asleep or inside the house so when the witch's head comes back it can't reattach itself. Once that happens, you call other men and they kill the witch's body and slowly kill the depowered head. They usually just use machetes. The witch's body crumbles or ages quickly as she loses her powers. My dad has seen this phenomenon in the sky, and apparently some men in Ixhuatlan del Cafe have been victims of marrying a witch. As time passes, the amount of witches dwindles. It's been quite some time since something like this has been heard of in modern towns, but some of the most closed-off communities still hunt down their witches. The abundance of spiritual lunacy that can screw you in Latin America is why people tend to be wary of wandering off into the night, and why camping doesn't tend to be that well seen as an activity. It's not just the cartels that make people vanish. There's things out there.
This account of mine isn't really impressive, but it's strange nonetheless. Going fishing at a secluded beach. There is a mangrove right next to it which attracts a lot of fish. The place is always quiet, even if there is a pontoon where fishing boats are often moored. That day there's no one. The car is parked right in front of the sea, very close to the water. I've got my favorite fishing rod, and it's shaping up to be a beautiful day. I cast it again and again, but it doesn't bite, not even a nibble. It is what it is, .jpg. After several hours without catching anything, I put my rod and the rest of my tackle in the car. The sea didn't want me today, .gif. I get in the car, ready to go. Just before I leave, I see something floating on the surface through the windscreen. It looks like a large coconut. I get out of the car to get a better look. The thing moves slowly with the current and goes to the right, towards the mangrove. And then it stopped moving. I walk closer to try to distinguish what it is. I'm on the sand, my feet almost in the water. The thing is no more than 20 feet from me. It really looks like a large coconut, but very dark, almost black. It's too rounded to be a turtle shell. Maybe it's some kind of drifting debris. Then something long and white comes out of the water and slides along the coconut. It looked like a garfish, like the ones I caught, but emerging from the water, showing me his white belly and rubbing his back on the black coconut. WTF.jpg. Maybe it's just a fin or tentacle from the thing that emerged. I pick up a pebble and throw it to see if it's alive. It falls less than 2 feet from the thing. I throw another pebble, then another and another. I miss my target every time. The thing is finally starting to react and is now moving against the current. Then she stops again and slowly backs away from the beach. The thing then sinks beneath the surface without a trace. I return to the car wondering what it was. In addition to the creature, there's something else that really shocked me. Where the thing was, the water was really shallow, barely 3 feet, and yet at no point did the idea occur to me to walk in the water to it. It was as if something was holding me back from even putting a foot in the water. Instinct, perhaps? In any case, I wasn't scared at all during my encounter. I was just curious and a little excited to see something like that. I've been thinking about it a lot since then. And something else, also really weird, has occurred to me. What if it wasn't a fin or a tentacle, but really a fish rising out of the water? What if whatever it was had somehow figured out that I wanted to catch fish and had tried to bring me some, or lure me into the water by waving one at the surface? Really, the more I thought about it, the stranger this thing was. I think I did the right thing by not going in the water that day. What do you think, guys? I'd just like to add that the thing was very much alive, and not just a piece of debris or a dead animal floating on the surface. It first approached the diagonal edge of the current, then to the right, in relation to the beach, with the current. Then it came to a complete stop. I saw the white fish form, then moved left against the current. After I threw the pebbles, it came to a halt once more. The current was clearly visible around it, before retreating slowly to the depths. There was a lively dynamism in its movement despite the visible absence of fins. I have to admit that once in the car, I immediately regretted not jumping in to see what it was. Then I thought that throwing the pebbles had made it realize that humans can be dangerous and that it shouldn't go near the shore. And finally, as I was on the road and thought about it more clearly, I realized that not going in the water with an unknown animal was the best thing to do.
Weird story, Anon. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be jumping in the water to check out something I can't even identify. Keck.
I know that jumping into the water may seem like reckless folly, but you have to understand that I'm used to swimming there when I'm not fishing, and the water is not deep at all. When I swim, I go much further than where the thing was. The sea was very calm, with a little current, and the sky was clear. I really wanted to know what it was, but the idea of joining the thing by walking in the water never crossed my mind. Do you, or anyone else, have any idea of what this might be? I need to know.
I once saw a beaver exhibiting similar behavior on a river. I sometimes fish, but this is the sea. Maybe a furry marine animal, if that even exists where you're at.
As far as I know, there are no beavers in the area. There used to be a sea mammal that lived close to the coast, but unfortunately it's long gone. Since I've already seen dolphins swimming relatively close to shore, I looked that way too. But the only potential candidate, color and size, was the pygmy sperm whale. However, at no time did I see a jet of water or the animal take a breath. The thing was perfectly silent, and apart from the white shape that emerged quickly, nothing else, apart from the dark shape, protruded from the water.
Well, garfish are typically located around the Gulf of Mexico and upwards the Mississippi River, so I'm assuming you live somewhere around that vicinity. I've lived in the South most of my life, and I haven't heard of anything like this. The closest thing I could think of is a floating active mine, but they have pegs on them and are easy to identify and fun to blow up with rifles if you ever seen one. A floating to the surface.
I don't think it was an artificial object because the thing was able to stop in spite of the current and even go against it. There are sometimes marker buoys or plastic drums that drift away after a storm, but this wasn't that either. As I said, the thing was barely 20 feet from the water's edge, and from where I was standing, I could see it was a living thing. Anyway, thanks for your reply. I only hope someone can shed some light on this matter one day.
Possibly. Be a police officer. Roughly half the jurisdiction is rural. Get called out to a house on edge of jurisdiction out in the country. Be advised, caller is possibly 104. Caller is probably a nut. Check call notes and see people have gone to this lady's house before. She's complained about people stomping on her roof at night. Go to her house. Talk to her. Nothing that she says seems outright insane, but that doesn't mean she's not a nut. You do this job long enough to realize a lot of crazy people are more subtle than walking around with "the end is nigh" signs and screaming about random things. She complains we, the police, aren't taking her seriously, and she wants her house put under surveillance because this roof thing has been happening on and off for months. I make her come with me to check around outside her house because I don't want to leave a reported crazy lady out of my sight. Walk around outside and don't see anything. Yeah, this lady is just subtly crazy. I say I'm leaving. Call us if something else happens. She complains that we aren't doing anything as usual and storms back inside. Get back in my car, turn on headlights. See immediate movement within 0.01 seconds of me flipping on the headlights on her roof. Use the spotlight on the car and move it around. Don't see anything. What the hell? Something is definitely up there. Figure it is a cat or something, but that's kind of weird given how far out we are, and also whatever it was seemed big for the 0.01 seconds I saw it in my peripheral vision. Lady swings her door open and shouts it's stomping on her roof again. Hear a loud thud, then leaves and brush rustling. Walk around the house again, but don't see anything. Ask the lady if she's ever seen anything odd. No, I just heard something on her roof. She still calls to this day about that. We don't know what it is, but it isn't a cat. I'm not the only cop who has seen weird stuff over there.
When biking back from some party late at night with friends when we were around 16 through the dunes, we saw some tall thing standing next to the road. It was hunched over slightly over a flower bed with what to us seemed like a witch's hat. Normally you hear owls and shit, but it was dead silent this time. Now in this area there were some wacky characters, such as a lady who dressed up as a witch and walked around at night, so one of my friends thought that it obviously was that weird woman, and approached. When he got semi-close, the creature stood up straight and it was so much taller than a regular human, so we took off real quick. The thing I can remember is that its head was pyramid-shaped. Instead of it having any organic form, I'm pretty sure no one looked back. I sure didn't, while cycling for our lives, and we never really talked about it much afterwards.
Be me 19. Staying with my uncle during winter. Northern Innowoods, Ontario, nearest town is less than 1,000 people, and like 30 minutes away. Huge property, forest on Canadian Shield. Backs onto a river at the base of a cliff and ravine. Large cave system under the property. Many openings in the cliff face. Middle of November and bored, so go hiking to these caves. Uncle tells me to get back by sundown and be careful of animals near the caves. Gives me a survival kit and bear mace. No guns because Canada. I brought a steak sandwich for lunch. Take an overgrown trail down to the river. Follow the river for like 30 minutes to get to caves. See a big cave I'm going to eat lunch in. Walk up to cave. There's garbage everywhere. Mostly food wrappers. Also things no animal would be interested in, like light bulbs and pens. Ready bear mace spray. Move closer to the cave. Hoarders buried alive intro.mp4. Smells like a neat's basement nest. Catch movement in my peripheral. Turn to see a white blur dart behind some brush. Dawns on me that it's dead quiet. It has the high ground. Engage the nope drives. Start booking it out of there. Hear a loud screech and then a thud near the cave. Glance back and see a 8 feet tall thing. Sort of like a pick attached, but off-white and with a more domed head. It has claws. I can feel it staring angrily at me. Stand frozen with bear mace ready. This thing is getting closer. Book it. Thumping and crunching of snow. Get an idea. Throw my lunch. Chasing noise stops. Glance back. It took the bait. Keep booking it. The last thing I see of that thing is standing just outside where all the garbage was watching me. Get back to my uncle. He's standing on the porch with a shotgun. tells me to get in the house. Does not come in for another 3 hours. Uncle grabs some booze, sits down, tells me that I just met the Winter Man. It stays in the caves when it's above freezing cold outside. Takes everything it can find to the seasonal nest. Mostly just littered garbage. Rarely it will approach lone houses like my uncle and try to get in sheds or garages. Uncle has had to shoot at this thing previous winters when it comes near the house. He's only seen it a handful of times in the 20 years he lived there. Mostly sees it wandering around in the brush, but it never acted aggressive unless he was near a nest. Also never chased him past an area of the nest. Says to avoid the river area. Never spoke of it again after that night. Saw it a few more times, but it was just a glimpse of it skulking around in the woods. I've brought it up to my uncle a few times since, but he ignores me or switches the topic.
I know someone who has seen a werewolf-like beast on his way home in the evening. He was passing by in his car on a small road between two villages. The road is not very wide, but well maintained. When he came to a turn, he was forced to slow down because there was what he thought was a large black dog in the middle of the road. He finally stopped his car, and the big dog turned to look at him. And that's when he realized it wasn't a dog, because the beast then moved to his right door and its front legs were much too long, like arms. The thing that really froze him in place was that the beast had red eyes and teeth, and he explained that it wasn't blood, but rather as if its teeth were fluorescent. In his mind, he thought it was a demonic being, and the beast stepped out of the way, perfectly in the light of his headlights as if to say, "You've seen me, so take a good look at me now." After that, the beast crossed the remaining stretch of road to the road's safety rails and jumped over them. He said that behind the safety rails there was a deep drop, and below it a shallow stream. He also said the beast wasn't afraid of him at all, but seemed surprised by his presence. What also scared him a lot was that he used to drive along this road late at night, but on a motorcycle rather than in a car. And he's pretty sure that if he'd been on a motorcycle, the beast wouldn't have let him off so easily.
Colonel Remy van Lierde was a decorated veteran for the Royal Air Force and the Belgian Air Force. Colonel van Lierde has an impressive list of achievements. He became Deputy Chief of Staff for the Belgian Minister of Defense. He was an aide to King Leopold III. He escaped a concentration camp, held second place for highest number of enemy bombers shot down. He was among the top 10 Belgian flying aces of World War II, one of the first Belgians to break the sound barrier, and later became commander of the Kamina Air Base in the Congo. In short, Colonel van Lierde was a credible, trained observer. In 1959, Colonel Remy van Lierde was piloting a helicopter, carrying a few others, returning from a mission in the Katanga region of the Congo. At a height of 150 feet above the ground, the crew spotted an absolute leviathan of a serpent. They estimated the serpent was 50 feet long, with its head alone being 2 feet wide. It was a dark shade of brown and green with a white belly. Van Lierde circled back and made between 4 and 6 passes over the snake so that one of the members of his crew could capture the photo you see on screen now. Allegedly, there is a second photo of the Congo snake which has never been released to the public. The colonel descended to get a better look, but then the snake raised 10 feet as if it were going to strike the helicopter, so close that Van Lierde felt uncomfortable and instead flew away. Called the Bigfoot of the Philippines, described as a man-sized bipedal ape with white fur and long nails by both Visayan folklore and modern eyewitness reports. The creature is said to live near the foot of the volcano Mount Canlaon in the Visayan Islands. The name translates to ape, monkey, or gorilla, though there are no gorillas native the area. The natives believe that the Amomongo is an animal and not an intelligent being like the aswang or a witch. On June 9, 2008, Elias Galvez and Salvador Aguilar of La Castellana suffered multiple attacks from the cryptid. Medical records backed up the eyewitness reports, showing wounds to their faces, backs, and abdomens. The town's police chief, Ted Velez, also stated that numerous other residents have reported being attacked by the creature well into the next day, and that the creature also reportedly disemboweled numerous goats and chickens, consuming their entrails.
La Castellana Mayor Alberto Nicor stated that the creature is not a witch or an aswang, the vampiric shapeshifter we discussed in level 1 of the iceberg, but a wild animal that was possibly starving. This is one possibility because there may be no food now on the mountain, or it might be that Amomongo's habitat has been disturbed by humans, thus it runs wild, Nicor said. Some believe that the Amomongo could be an albino ape, though there have been no albino apes proven to exist in the area. Regardless, something attacked people and slaughtered animals near Mount Canlaon, and the witnesses say it was the Amomongo. The persistent myth of bipedal apes across so many cultures is very intriguing.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup,